Hey guys, welcome back to the Midnight Ride. I am Graveyard Graham. I was thinking about TV shows that ran too long. I guess you could also say the same thing about movies that were stretched out too far, like butter spread across too much bread. An apt metaphor for The Hobbit because that was a book that did not have enough content in it to justify 9 hours of cinema, but I digress. So I've been getting back into Transformers stuff, really like looking back at some of the older cartoons from the 80s and 90s. I was a huge fan of Beast Wars in the mid 90s. They had a follow up series called Beast Machines that I never finished. I actually lost interest in it. It was a weird deviation from anything that made any sense at all. And the fans are really divided on Beast Machines, even to this day. I won't get into why. But in all of my surfing around and listening to podcasts and stuff on YouTube, the algorithm gave me a clip from a Transformers convention a couple of years back where somebody was asking the guy who was, I don't know his name, I don't remember his name, the showrunner for Beast Machines. He said, "Hey, I heard there was a rumor that there was supposed to be a third season of Beast Machines, but it got canceled. Like, what were you guys thinking might be the storyline for that?" And he goes, "I'm glad you asked that. I actually wanted to clear that up. Um, while the show was really divisive amongst fans, it did have its own fan base, and the numbers were actually doing really well. And that's why the studio, it was with Fox Kids at that point, they actually approached us and said, hey, like we want to do another season. They've been contracted for two, and so they planned their overall story arc with an ending in mind for two seasons of 13 episodes. It was just going to be 26 episodes long. And when they came to him, like partway through season two, and they're like, hey, we might want to stretch this out. The numbers are going well. And he said no, because he didn't want to push the ending out based on the pacing that they'd already done and then shove in another 13 episodes of filler content to get there. And he knew what that would mean for his career, and that if they really wanted a third season, they'd just fire him and put somebody else in charge, or if there was going to be a follow-up show after that, that he wouldn't get it because, hey, he told them no. But he stuck to his guns, and he's still worked since then. But he had a vision for the show, and he's still proud of having done it, and that's that. I thought, as conflicted as I am, not really conflicted, like as down as I am on that iteration of Transformers and how it was really an unfitting epilogue for all the great things that had happened in Beast Wars. It's like, okay, like I can respect that artistically from that perspective, especially because there are so many shows that dragged on too long and the showrunners didn't say, like, hey, let's give this an ending. Let's keep a focus on the art side of this and not just the commerce and product side. In the realm of sitcoms, that 70s show was one that ran a couple of seasons too long. In fact, if you look at season one, which I believe that was when they had a Star Wars episode, so the first season started in 76 or 77, and then if every year after that, for 8 seasons, they had a Christmas episode, but the show ends with New Year's on at the end of 1979. So, okay, like I'm not looking at trying to be too strict with a chronological canon of a sitcom, but the main character of the show departed for the 8th season, and they tried to fill him in with a couple of other guys. It didn't work. They finally tied it up after that, and then they've had a reunion show on Netflix, the 90s show, like whatever. They should have called it quits, but it was too popular. And so they kept dragging it out until it was no longer popular. Similar thing happened with the Avatar cartoons, not the Blue People, but the American anime one, The Last Airbender. There was so much interest in it that they did a follow-up show, The Legend of Korra, and okay, people are divided on that one. I think the first season of that show is very well done and a fitting end to the overall arc of what happened in the first one. But the original trilogy and that first season were so strong and so well received, the studio said more, 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 more. And you can really feel how watered down the next 3 seasons of that show were. And if memory serves, it actually got canceled from proper syndication or distribution on Nickelodeon itself in the middle of the 4th season. And the last several episodes of it were like way darker and more violent. And then they just did a complete sphincter pull in the last 2 or 3 episodes and made Korra gay at a time when they could claim cultural points for that. I think this might have been like right around the time the Obergefell decision happened. So it watered down the quality of the art itself that had been a hallmark of it through the original trilogy and the first season of Korra. There are other examples. How I Met Your Mother ran on way too long, especially for a show about a guy who, at age 27, starts his pursuit of actually finding a wife and ends up not finding her for the next 8 years. And we're supposed to believe that 20 years after that, he's recounting to his kids basically every sexual conquest he's ever had. It's like, okay, it was a very popular sitcom. It ran on too long. The 80s and 90s Star Trek shows, those were all pretty well paced. They were largely episodic, although other seasons had kind of through lines with different conflicts they were trying to resolve. But Next Generation, DS9, and Voyager, they kind of all leapfrogged each other. They each got their 7 seasons. They all ended tastefully. They had really big triumphant moments. And overall, they had a good formula. Maybe not like a good overall plan, but they had a good formula and they ended well. I'm probably thinking of others or forgetting others that are good examples of this. The Lord of the Rings trilogy, fantastic. People were interested in Hobbit. I think they got not the best execution on that concept. The studios were thinking more about money, and people are divided on it. Going all the way back to the Beast Machines guy, it was a cartoon that the fan base largely doesn't like, and the people who are fans of it really aren't fans of the rest of it. So, okay, we'll argue it to our blue in the face. But when the time came, provided that story's accurate, when the time came for him to decide between keeping his career going or keeping this particular job going and getting more money versus sticking to the artistic vision that he had, I can appreciate and respect that integrity. Gargoyles, that was a 90s cartoon that the original creators had this 10-episode vision for it, and they got it, and it was so popular that Disney's like, cool, do you think you could do a second season? And they're like, yeah, we've got an idea for 6 episodes or so. They're like, cool, we want 52 episodes. Oh, crap. So, hey, if you had literally any idea at all for a Gargoyles episode, congratulations, you got greenlit, and it went in some pretty freaking weird directions. But they got their 52 episodes. Now it's like the only property that they have that they won't make a live-action adaptation of, even though Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis and Keith David are all still alive. No, hell with that. We refuse to do anything, even though this was a cartoon that had actual diversity in it. But I digress, as I often do. There is something to be said about sitting at the intersection of commercial success and artistic integrity and saying, it is nice to make more money, but what's the legacy of this thing going to be? And picking that legacy. I think that's cool. And let me know if there's anything that I'm overlooking, if there's a really good example of that where somebody said, I'm not doing any more of this. Bill Watterson, definitely a case of that with Calvin and Hobbes. That dude never, other than like a calendar for 1 or 2 years, there are people begging him for merchandise and for tie-in materials and other adaptations, and he said no, and he still says no. Like, that dude has left $1 billion on the table. That is integrity. Respect, Bill Watterson. All right, midnight ride over. Well, hang on. Road tester. Got him. Drive safe. See you out there.